his blogger. But he rolled through South Bridge, and he was basically talking about inner cities. And he, I guess, called himself defining, couldn't even say the word Hill Street appropriately. But I just want to say to all of you who watch, we should never allow an outsider to define who we are. Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
And welcome to The Source. Well, Kobe, it has been a busy week. We are on the air once a week, and it seems like we were just together. We probably have to get some more time because so much is going on in and around our country as well as our state and city. But I want to start today with something that happened in the Brandywine 100 area. 18-year-old young lady was killed in a vehicle accident where she was trying to cross the street and something happened. Are you aware of that situation?
Yeah, so 18-year-old young lady was crossing Silverside and Marsh right there at that intersection. There was a 47-year-old driver who was in the left-hand lane turning, and she had a green light, solid green, when she made the turn and accidentally hit the young lady. So I feel sorry for her, but this is a trend that we're seeing across Delaware. We're starting to see more people get hit, especially as people start to get back to schools and things start to open back up. You have to be very cautious when you're on the roads again, and I think some people have forgotten how to share the road as well, too.
Yeah, and I like what you said, to share the road, because what happens is, and like you said, the young lady, the driver, the 47-year-old was clear to make the turn, but sometimes we're not paying attention to the level that we are. So for those of you who are watching us, you also got to make sure that we're watching for the people who are walking, and the people who are walking are watching for the vehicles that are sharing the road with us. But we have to be careful. We're back in school. School is back open, and we can't just be like robots. It's green, go.
Right.
Matter of fact, that's one of the things I'm against this new car system where your car can drive for you, because they don't have the human touch. So we don't want to become that same person. So my prayers go out to that 18-year-old young lady's parents as well as her family members, and even for the person who struck her, we certainly praying for that person, because the nerves and the anxiety also was probably stricken.
So, again, we talked about the firefighter who was hit not too long ago on 95. We talked about incidents that had happened all across Newcastle recently. But going with the new traffic flow and with the increased traffic, 95 has also had a lot of accidents during this construction period. And just recently, it was announced that DelDOT is saying no more 18-wheelers are allowed to go on 95. They're being diverted to 495 to try to cut down on the accidents. So they are trying to address some of the ills we're having right now as more drivers get back on the road, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the 18-wheelers. Now they're starting to restrict them from 95.
Yeah, because they're saying what's happened, because it's such a tight place on 95 right now with the barriers up there, they're causing cars to move over to the side, and they're scraping up against the wall, which is causing more accidents. So to try to take that away, they're going to send them through 495 instead of going through the construction zone.
Yeah, and we'll be right back.
He did it before, he could do it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I won't give in. No, I'm not gonna turn around. Yeah, I know I'll win if I don't give up now. Waiting for my change to come, and I know he will come through. And this is how I'm so sure. If he did it before, he do it again. Same God right now. Woo! Same God back then. If he did it before, he do it
And we're back. Well, we want to continue in this local area. The redistricting situation is going on September the 28th.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so redistricting takes place every 10 years. It's after the census, and what they do, they try to make sure that there's equal representation across the board. Now, redistricting has looked different each and every time. And due to the Voting Rights Act, we have certain provisions that we have to follow, certain protections that are put in place to make sure minority voters aren't disenfranchised. So Delaware is now starting their process. There was a delay because of what happened at the federal government with the census count under the Trump administration. But on September 28th at 6 p.m. to about 8 p.m., there will be a hearing where lawmakers will give you an overview of the process of what redistricting is going to be like, explain how the districts are actually drawn, trying to keep communities together.
Okay.
You know, in the past, there's been neighborhoods that have been split right down the middle 3 different ways, right?
Oh, wow.
So making sure you keep neighborhoods together, but also hitting those certain population numbers that each district has to represent. And again, it's just a process to make sure you know who's going to be representing you, and you know, what may happen is who your current state senator or current state representative is may not be that same person the next go round.
So how does that work with, even though that person may not be, can it be more added, more seats are added, or could it just be that more load is added to a certain seat?
Yeah, so as of right now, Delaware is going to be increasing each size of the district by about 3,000 to 4,000 people.
Okay.
So currently it sits at about 20,000 per House district, about maybe 42,000 per state Senate district. It's going to go to 47,000 per state Senate, and 24 per House district. Now they do have the opportunity to keep it smaller and create new seats. They tried that last go round, and that was voted down. So they just increased the size back in 2012.
Okay, got you. So what we got to do is now look, once on the 28th, we'll be able to go and hear what the process is. After the 28th, then it goes into plans of how they're going to redistrict everyone.
Correct.
How does that hurt or help politically?
Yeah, so you look at areas that had smaller growth versus areas that had larger growth. So larger growth areas in the state was down Sussex at the beach area, Rehoboth, Dewey, Lewis area had a lot of growth. Sussex overall grew by 40,000. Newcastle only grew by 20,000. And most of that growth actually came in the Middletown area, that MOT area, where we've seen that boom in the last 10 years, right? The city of Wilmington was undercounted. The northern Wilmington area, that 202 area, was also undercounted as well, too. So you're going to see those areas are going to have to get bigger to make up for the population difference. Okay. And then also you look at Newark area, there's some state rep districts out there that are over 11,000 under where they need to be, just because there's been so much population loss from that area versus gain in other areas.
So on a national level, we recognize we have only one congressperson because of our population.
Yes.
Has our population grown to maybe we'll end up with 2, or how does that work?
We were actually very close to getting to this go round, and hopefully, you know, in 10 years we will get our second congressperson. Delaware actually has had 2 congresspeople before in the past for about, I think just for one 10-year stint, and then we lost the seat again. But we are now the largest single district state in the nation. Now that Montana is getting 2, so our Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester will be representing the most people of any member of Congress right now. If we gain another, I think it's only 120,000 people, we will most likely qualify to get a second congressional district.
Right, but I guess in the way the Constitutional is written, each state is guaranteed 2 senators.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter about your population.
Across the board, everyone will stay even in the Senate. But that's why they call the House, the lower chamber, the People's House, because it's supposed to be more in tune. Because they represent smaller areas of states. And also with redistricting, they kind of have a cap on the number of members of Congress they have, and what they do, they reallocate to states that are growing and states that have lost.
Okay.
New York, for instance, lost only one congressional seat, not two. They kept their second seat by 43 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess they're happy about that because they want to
Yeah.
keep that representation very, very strong. So with the redistricting, that politically is not so much of a harm thing. It's just more or less where you currently are, you may be added to another district.
That's how it should be.
Okay.
But what happens, you have gerrymandering happens.
Right.
You have pack and stack, which takes minority districts and pack them all in one district where they should be divided in two or three.
That's where I was going.
So that it will become a majority or a minority majority in certain districts, but they overwhelmingly pack minority votes together. Usually what you see happen with that is once it leans towards one party, and then the other party is able to pick up the other two seats that should have had the minority vote in it. You've seen that in places such as Kentucky, number one place actually is Texas, where it's happening, and then also down in Georgia where it's happening as well too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to move past that, and I want to talk a little bit about some celebratorial things in the local area while we're still in the local. Just last week, the Hispanic community have celebrated their festival.
Yes.
And there was so much going on, and for our viewers, they have a very rich history here.
Yes.
And what is the festival about?
So it's about bringing the community together, getting ready to kick off Hispanic Heritage Month, which starts on September 15th and goes until October 15th. And that festival is just a blending of cultures. People from all different backgrounds coming together and celebrating. It's a festival that I've been a part of for the last 7-8 years now. You know, we took a break in 2020 as almost everything had to. But it's it's music, it's food, it's dance, and it's celebration of coming together. You have politicians there, you have different dance groups there, and then of course you have people who parade their cultural celebratory outfits and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do give credit to our Hispanic community who certainly go all the way out for their there was one time I got stuck in the middle of a parade, and not in the middle, but I was going somewhere and I had to wait for the parade to pass, and it took a long time, but I really do say hats off to them, and I just want to do a quick highlight of some of the things that happened real quick. And we're back, and let me just say to the Hispanic community, congratulations, and you have done over the years and will continue to do a great job with maintaining and keeping your heritage rich, alive, and relevant. So we say hats off to you. Let me turn the page just a minute because this is a pride moment for me because it's not something I did, but it's something that one of mine did. I'm a proud graduate of Lincoln University. I don't just say it when there's something powerful happening. I am a proud graduate of the oldest historically black college in this country, founded in 1854 by Dickey. I know my history well there. But something happened where one of our professors, who happens to be a member of E. Zion Fair Baptist Church, I want to say that very clearly. I am a graduate of the oldest historically black college, and the professor happens to be a member of E. Zion Fair, Brother Keem Dix, and he did something that HBCUs are noted for. We have been criticized for quote-unquote ghetto style this and ghetto style that, but what he did, and now getting viral, even Oprah, retweeted his video. What he did is what HBCUs are famous for. The young lady, 21-year-old young lady, called him or texted and said, "Look, I can't make class today. I can't find anyone to take care of my child." He said, no. And no meant no, you will come to class. And not only will you come to class, but you will come to class and I will take care of your child while you learn what you need to learn. Go.
Yeah, no, and it's, I saw the video. Someone actually posted it on TikTok. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it on every social media site. It's a heartwarming moment. And it also shows the importance of teachers and professors actually caring about their students' advancement in school. Nothing should deter you from getting that education. And when your own brother found out, from Delaware, that you told me earlier, he's from Delaware, when he found out that she, thought she couldn't come to class because she couldn't find a babysitter, he welcomed the baby in, and I'm sure the baby had a good time there too.
I'm sure.
And it looked like the baby was, enjoying it. So
and he's a big guy too. I mean, he's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But I want to correct something. No, he's from Chester.
Oh, he's from Chester.
Yes, he's a member of East Iron Fair. He lives in Wilmington right now, and he's from Chester. Come from a very strong and good family, and he's done well in his life. Got to have his doctorate degree. He's doing very well. He's been teaching at Lincoln for about 6 or 7 years now, and been a member here for about 10. But I do say that I didn't want you to think that he was from Delaware, which is all right to be from Delaware, but he's from Chester, but he lives here now, and he's a member of Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that loves you and anything you can do about it. But I want to say to him, to Brother Dick, as I already shared with him several times, congratulations. Oftentimes, people marry, and I want to talk about a couple of parts of this story. People marry our success, but they divorce our failure. And when we're going through something or when things are happening in our lives, people tend to shy away from us. But when we are in the glory moments, they run to us to be a part of that. But in his story, what he really did is he exposed to the world, to the country, that HBCUs matter. He's doing what we do. And that's what's so interesting about it. And I know I often joke with you about you going to a historically white college, and that's no wrong with that because you went down in Virginia, so you was down there with. But I just believe that all too often, and I'm very proud of how Biden has appointed President Allen to take over, to making sure that the HBCUs get their rightful amount. But this is what they have done for years, and I think it's important. I hope every congressperson, every senator noted one part of that story. And the part I hope they noted was she had no one to take care of her child. Child care matters.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because that has not only has the Biden administration want to invest historic amounts of money into HBCUs, they also want to invest in early childhood development and childcare, universal childcare as well too, so that people don't even have to worry about having to send that email. It's already provided to them if they are in that situation. So it ties the two together good, and I hope that the Democratic caucus uses this as an opportunity to uplift the story of why the Build Back Better plan and the agenda that President Biden is pushing is so critical to so many working class Americans.
Yeah. Do you think at the great university, West Virginia University, do you think that the professor would have held the child while teaching because a person did not?
I had some professors who, definitely would not have. They would have told you, don't come to class, and you will be getting a mark absent, and this will be held against you. So, it's just different depending where you go, and depending on the culture of the university as well, too, of what is student life and what is that experience supposed to be, and what your professors also believe student life should be, and how engaged they are with your overall success.
Yeah, and I will say this: I mean, he's in the physical education area of academia, and he has done a very good job, as I've said 3 or 4 times already. But I am a big proponent of HBCUs, and I'm going to keep going back to them. We're going to go to a break. But I am a big proponent of them. I just believe that the culture, student life, academic standards, because I remember when I was a student years ago at Lincoln, Dr. Sudarkis, who's now gone home to be with the Lord, she always said excellence is our only map. Not because we want to be better than someone else, but because we want to be at the top of who we are. And I think that what he tried to share with the young lady, and I can't read his mind, is that you come to school You come to class, you get all you can, and we're going to help you with all the other things. So again, that Build Back Better agenda is important. People don't know the struggles that people go through. People don't know, people tend to think, or some people tend to think that, if she shouldn't have had the baby. She should have had a husband. She should have had this. But you don't understand the struggles and how people are still trying to pull themselves up even after a mistake, if there was a mistake. We're not saying it was, but even after a mistake. So I just really felt so warm. Weeks ago when I found out this occurred, I called him immediately to say congratulations on doing what we do at HBCUs. But I hope that the Congress, the senators, will see the messages that are in there. HBCUs, they do matter, and healthcare matter, and child care matter, and women's rights matter. It's so much wrapped up in that. While we can celebrate the act that he did, there were so many other things wrapped up in it.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and Brother Akil, congratulations, and we wish you well, and we hope to see you in church on Sunday. We'll be right back.
With ABC News this month to bring you stories showing America strong, which highlight the strength and resilience of people throughout our nation. Tonight, we want to introduce you to a local college professor who's doing more than teaching health sciences. He's also imparting life lessons and showing how it truly takes a village. Action News community journalist Becca Hendrickson has his story.
Look at the chart.
The story of how this college professor ended up holding a baby
In both sexes.
was life-changing for the 21-year-old student who was finally able to take notes.
I always wanted to go to HBCU, so I decided what's better than the first, so I chose Lincoln.
Now 23-year-old Amani Lamar had just come back to school after taking a semester off for her child, who was born premature and spent months in the NICU.
It was really hard every day going to the hospital and seeing him, not being able to help him, and it was hard.
Little Christopher Murphy, named for Amani's late father, became her world. Her schedule revolved around his. So when she told Dr. Akil Dix she had to miss class because she couldn't find a babysitter.
No. He told me no. And I just was looking at him like, no, I can't miss class. I don't have nobody to watch my baby.
I'm not going to have one of my students miss class because they have no one to watch their child. That's just not an option for me.
Look at
Dr. Dix said, bring the little guy in.
That's my character. I don't mind helping my students wherever they need me.
Amani had reservations about bringing her baby to class. How would he react? Would he be a distraction to other students? Would she be able to focus? But when Dr. Dix started lecturing, something changed for Amani. She realized she could do this.
I never thought that it would ever come to that, and to have somebody who's there for me, who really cares and genuinely wants me to finish and finish strong, it meant a lot.
Amani is now a few months from graduating.
Exactly.
And she has two of her favorite guys, her mentor and her now 2-year-old healthy son, to thank.
You really don't understand how much this meant to me.
At Lincoln University, Becca Hendrickson, Channel 6, Action News.
And we're back. Just want to now move towards the national news for those of you, and I want to thank many of you who have shared with us. You like how we break the show down and talk about the local, and then from the local we go to the national, and then we do our Kobe Corner, which I enjoy very much. But I want to talk about hats off to those Florida police officers who this 8th grader, he basically, he and a counterpart decided we're gonna reinvent Columbine, and we're gonna do certain things, and we're gonna make sure that we have a massacre, and it was just sad and saddened with what the police found and discovered. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, this was a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old
Yeah.
that planned to commit mass murder, which is a trend that we're seeing more and more. And I know last year, some of the people who are against some of the regulations that others want to see said, oh, it was no mass shootings last year. Well, that's because we weren't in school.
Yeah.
We were on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So other than 2020, we have seen mass shootings in schools climb and climb and climb, from Columbine, from the Parkland shooting, from the Sandy Hook shooting.
Right.
I am happy that the Lee County Police Department was able to stop this, to figure it out before it happened and before anyone was injured. But this is another reason why we have to be more in tune with what's actually going on in our young children's lives.
Yeah, let's look at some footage on that.
The information alleged that the 8th grade student was possibly in possession of a gun concealed in his book bag. The teacher promptly alerted the school resource deputy and school administrators. The student was removed from class and an administrative search was performed. No weapons were located in the bag. However, a map of the school was located. The map contained markings indicating the location of each of the school's interior cameras, and we take every tip and every threat seriously, so we did not stop there. Detectives with our Youth Services Criminal Investigations Division assumed the investigation. During the investigation, detectives identified 2 students involved in a plot to carry out a school shooting. Detectives learned the students took an interest in the Columbine High School shooting. They were extensively studying to learn more about the incident and the shooters. Detectives also learned the students were attempting to learn how to construct pipe bombs and how to purchase firearms on the black market. Search warrants were executed at each of their homes. Detectives discovered some disturbing evidence, including a gun and several knives. Detectives determined that they both met the criteria for evaluation at a mental health facility. They will both be charged with conspiracy to commit a mass shooting. I have been crystal clear. Our kids will be safe. We will investigate every tip and every threat, and we will respond with zero tolerance.
Yeah, you know, Kobe, it's really interesting, and I want to say again, hats off to them, because to the police officers, because when the teachers had informed the authorities that of a gun, possible gun, they did the administrative search, but they didn't find a gun. Right. But what they found was a map of all the cameras, which sparked their curiosity to go ahead and move a little bit further.
Correct. And you know, once they did move forward, they got a warrant, they searched their house. Yeah. That's where they found weapons. They found a gun, they found knives, and this is, what led to the arrest and everything. And again, luckily, those officers felt the need to take that map serious, and to follow up on that, because if they didn't, something bad really could have happened in that school. Yeah,
and we really have to be careful not to take for granted. I think they talked about that in the coverage, the footage. We have to make sure that we take serious whenever there's any form of threat of violence. It may not happen right then. It may not have all the details right then, but we have to take serious. We could have been talking about a massacre another week or so, because when they arrived to the house, they found the guns, they found explosives, they found things that they were preparing, and now they're charged.
Right. And like I said a little earlier, with this whole era of school mass shootings, there's kind of a glorification of the shooter that I think happens in the media that certain individuals want for their own lives. They want to be idolized and memorialized for their lives. So they look at this and glorify those who have went in the past. You look at what's going on right now with the shooter down in the Parkland shooting. Okay. He has a fan base. He has websites dedicated and idolizing him. So this is what people are dealing with right now. And I think it also, it's an opportunity for individuals to take that and kind of manipulate the mind of young children to do the same thing.
Yeah, which is very, very sad. Mm-hmm. And it also speaks to why we have to be very meticulous in paying attention to what's going on, because the first thing that came to my mind, Kobe, and you may say that's some place we don't need to go, but where was his parents? Mm-hmm. How did you search a child's room and find all that they found, and the parents have no clue? Right. I think, personally, parents should go to jail too.
Well, that's the thing. We try to take steps to ensure safety here in Delaware with the safe storage bill that we passed a few years ago. And what that does is, we're not saying, and the state's not saying, you can't own guns. Mm-hmm. But if you have children in the house, you have people who have disabilities who are in the house, you have to safely store that weapon away to make sure no one else can access it, and make sure no one else can cause harm to themselves. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Not only because of incidents like this and potential school shootings, but also the number one killer and cause of death of young people are suicides.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, when that does occur, is by gun, and it's by guns that their parents own. Yeah,
and it's interesting that you share that, because on my Coffee with Curry, I spent a whole show on this whole suicide prevention, and I talk about the gun violence and how there's more suicide death among young people than homicide. Yep. Even though we talk a lot about the homicide. But again, the parents, I mean, when they went in and searched, it wasn't the law that they have in Delaware would not even have helped, because they went into his room. They saw the explosives in his room. They saw the guns they found in their rooms. And I think that this is something that parents need to be held accountable for. Correct. I mean, we are big on saying these kids are out of control. What are the parents doing? Where are the parents at? We cannot continue to just let them go free. Right. You hold parents. See, they used to have truancy officers, and I think the attendance in schools were better when we had truancy, because my mama ain't going to jail, right. Daddy ain't going to jail, so you're going to go to school. When you don't hold parents accountable for their children's actions, what will happen? What we see just occurred. And you may say, somebody looking at me saying, well, I can't control my child. Report them to the authorities. You report them to the authorities, and let the authorities handle them if you can.
Right. And again, you know, we're in Delaware. We do have red flag laws. So if you have a concern for your child or someone in your household that may cause harm because there's firearms in, you can report that to the state, to the police. They will come remove it, put a 72-hour hold or a 48 or 72-hour hold, and you have to go see a judge and everything. There's a whole process there if you believe it's that necessary. So there are programs set up here in Delaware that can help with that. Now, I can't speak to Florida and any others.
Yeah, well, we don't want to put you in that kind of predicament. Let me move it a little bit further to now the pandemic that we're in, and I just want to say for the record that Israel got it right. Yeah. Israel has it right. I just think that America is moving too slow. We're the richest, the most powerful nation in the world. We can do so many. This vaccination was created in record speed time, although they were working on a form of COVID vaccination. And for us to be where we are now, I still am blaming those who chose not to be vaccinated for the recent variants that we have. But Israel is moving forward now to a booster, and they are already in because they decided, I'm not going to wait for the CDC. We see what's happening, and we want to get this pandemic behind us. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so right now, a lot of local and state health departments are really, starting to draft and roll out their plans of what they want their booster program to look like. But we're still, on the federal level, we're still waiting for the FDA. We're still waiting for the CDC's stamp of approval. I know a lot of states and local governments are looking to start the week of the 20th, which is, tomorrow. So we will see how that goes. But I could tell you one thing. People want to get that booster shot right now because they are scared of this Delta variant, but also the Mu variant as well, too, which in Delaware, we have 5 cases so far verified of the Mu.
Oh, we do have some. Okay.
We do. And then, of course, the rise of the Delta is still going on across Delaware right now.
Now, you have made a prediction. You didn't predict where it would be, but you said it probably would because the others started there. Did the Mu start at University of Delaware?
So they have not released where it started yet, but it came out right after the numbers for the UD.
Okay.
Kind of epidemic happening right now with how many students are catching it each week. And I think they're sitting at 376 total who are with the COVID virus right now.
Good. Let's take a look at this video because, I think Israel did it right.
We can and we will turn the tide on COVID-19.
President Biden anxious, like all of us, to get out of this pandemic. And to do that, he and his top health advisors are looking.
When you look at the Israeli data, and they are about a month or so ahead of us in every aspect of this.
To Israel. At the beginning of the year, the vaccination rollout started much more quickly in Israel than in the U.S. Dr. Ron Balliser is chair of Israel's COVID-19 National Expert Advisory Panel.
By the end of May, Israel thought it was out of the woods.
But even with a vigorous vaccination campaign, a dual threat arrived this summer. The Delta variant posed a challenge to the vaccine, and at the same time, the Israelis say protection from the vaccine has started to wane over time, becoming less effective. Cases in Israel now higher per capita than in the U.S. And that made Israel move quickly. They started administering booster shots August 1st. In the U.S., the FDA and the CDC are still reviewing boosters. Up until the booster shots, Israel waited for the FDA and for the CDC to chime in. But you guys just did boosters without the FDA and the CDC chiming in.
I think there was a different level of urgency felt in the two countries. Decisions by the FDA have been made and we could have followed them. But in the situation that we were at, it was obvious that action was needed urgently. Decisions need to be made.
Ballasar and other Israeli health officials are in constant contact with U.S. health officials, sharing their data on COVID-19 after boosters.
And with the third dose, they are much better protected against severe illness. So this is one reason to go through with the booster campaign.
Now, while hospitalizations are skyrocketing in the U.S., the number of severe cases in Israel has plateaued recently, and per capita deaths in Israel are lower than in the U.S., offering a glimpse of what could happen if the U.S. takes certain steps.
Yeah, so it's very important that we take serious. Israel did it right, in my opinion. They decided we can't wait. It works, it's effective. No one has died from the booster. Matter of fact, it has strengthened them where they are really combating this whole virus to a very, very another level.
Right, and some people have already got a booster. Yeah. Some people who were immunocompromised, when the first rollout came out, they already knew they would have to get 3 or 4 shots because of their immune system already. So I know there's still, a little confusion and chaos happening on a federal level, but local health officials are seeming to move full steam ahead.
Good. And for those of you who are watching, please make sure you don't find or look for an excuse not to get it. We still have many Delawareans. We still have many Americans who have not even taken one shot because you're talking about these conspiracy theories of this happening. As a matter of fact, what's that girl named, the singer Minaj or somebody? Nicki Minaj with her crap. She's sharing that, somebody got impotent and then when they went to get to facts, they could not find any facts of what she shared. We are searching, not we people, are searching for opportunities not to get vaccinated. Correct. But this is why our country is still in the chaos that it's in as it relates to this pandemic, is because we're looking for a reason not to do it. But listen, everyone on the set today, as well as the team that works with me here at Zion Fair, we're all vaccinated. We're still living. We're stronger than ever before. We need to get the vaccination. There are people, and I'm going to go to the commercial break, but there are people who have just died, who left videos saying, I just wished I would have taken it.
Right. No, I mean, just like with anything else, the vaccine is there to help boost your immune system so that you can fight this virus if you do contract it, so that you have a higher chance of living. And hearing those stories time and time again, we talked about the parents who orphaned their children because they decided not to get the vaccine, and now their children are left without parents. That is something that we are sad at hearing, but also you have to take responsibility. If you want to protect yourself and your families, you have to get this vaccine.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. We'll be right back.
I'm getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Yes, there could be some short-term side effects from the vaccine, but they go away in a day or 2. Those are signs that my body's building protection. It's worth it to avoid serious problems from COVID-19.
And we're back. My favorite part of the show. I wish that I was sitting where you're sitting at right now so we can enjoy, pick the mind of our young brother who is a millennial, who certainly have worked very, very hard to help somebody else who cannot always help him back. And we have labeled this section of our show Kobe's Corner. Kobe, what's going on? California first.
Yes. So for the last few episodes, we've talked about the governor recall and what's happening out there with that. To give a little more background, in California, there was an effort led by the GOP to recall the governor because of his restrictions during the pandemic in 2020, and they viewed this as though it was unconstitutional and overstepped the boundaries of a governor. So what happens once that recall is initiated, it then goes to a 2-question ballot. So the first question is, do you believe that Governor Newsom should be recalled? It's a simple yes or no. If the yes wins, then it goes to who do you think should replace? And there was a ton of candidates.
About 40.
Think, yeah, like 40, 45 candidates running. Larry Elder was the leading candidate. A personality in the talk show community. He was the leading person for the Republicans and for the state, actually. But the voters of California overwhelmingly said, no, we do not believe that Governor Newsom should be recalled. And just to give you the numbers, it was 63.8% said no to 36.2% that said yes. To give you some actual numbers of how many voters that is 5.9 million said no to the 3.3 million that said yes. And votes are still coming in. Last time it was updated, it was at about 75% of the count was in. So it's going to hold no matter what, which means he gets to keep his seat. This is a huge victory for him and the Biden administration. That would have been a huge embarrassment. But also it's a win for the people. And if you look at the map of where the counties that overwhelmingly voted no versus the counties that overwhelmingly voted yes, you can overlay that with a map of the counties that have lower COVID numbers versus the counties that have higher COVID numbers because their county execs and their local governments are anti-mandates, so they haven't had the mask. They've been fighting back more Republican areas. That's where they're seeing the high numbers of COVID cases right now in California.
Wow. So I this is what I believe, and I'm very grateful for. You said about 70% said, no, we don't want a recall.
Correct.
To the 30% that said, yes, let's do a recall. In order to show the Republicans the real deal, we needed that overwhelming victory.
Yes.
Let me move a little bit further. He had already started with Trump's playbook.
Yeah.
Hey, if the only way I would lose is that there's some shenanigans, using his words, going on. Well, the people of California made it where it was impossible for the shenanigans to be looked upon as somebody cheating. And he, to the point where he just succeeded and said, I congratulate him. Well, I don't know how he
he conceded the night before, which is something I've never seen in politics. And I follow school board races in Alaska. I have never seen a candidate concede the race the night before and then go on a long rant the day of an election saying, oh, don't go to the polls because it's been stolen already. I think he saw the writing on the wall.
Right, and that's why he did that.
And that's why he did the very performative action of that.
Right.
But again, this is, what we're going to deal with in 2021 for the rest of these elections coming up and what we're going to deal with in 2022, which is why it's so important. And I think is why it's so important that advocates are so adamant about voting rights right now.
Yeah, and right now we really going to have to pay close attention because California is one, but they're also looking at Virginia, saying that's another place that we need to be looking at as we see where the country is and what's going on with the country. But congratulations to Brother Newsom on Governor Newsom on his victory second time around, or they didn't get their way. But it's just been very, very interesting to watch. But that overwhelmed. See, if he would have won by a couple percentage points, they would have had room to talk. But we got to get out. We got to vote. We got to vote. We got to vote in huge numbers so that when those shenanigan lies get out there, we'll be able to really combat them. So I'm very, very grateful. And again, congratulations to him. Let's look at their victory real quick.
And I think about just in the last, few days, and the former president put out saying this election was rigged. Democracy is not a football. You don't throw it around. It's more like antique vase. You can drop it and smash it in a million different pieces. And that's what we're capable of doing if we don't stand up to meet the moment and push back. I said this many, many times on the campaign trail. we may have defeated Trump, but Trumpism is not dead in this country. The big lie, the January 6th insurrection, all the voting suppression efforts that are happening all across this country, what's happening, the assault on fundamental rights, constitutionally protected rights of women and girls. It's a remarkable moment in our nation's history. But I'm reminded of something, I don't know, a few decades ago, someone told me when describing a difficult and challenging moment, said, the world is too small, our time is too short, and our wisdom is too limited to win fleeting victories at other people's expenses. And he went on to say, we must all triumph together.
Again, that's how we do it. We're going to have to make sure we vote in a lot of numbers, and we have to win graciously. Yes. I want to give him credit for that too. He did not go on this rampage talking about I knew, but he did it graciously. Let's talk about this new voter rights bill that's coming out with your best friend in the Senate.
Yeah, so the Senate has been on vacation, on break, but there has been a group of senators who've been working on this, including Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's the prime sponsor, Joe Manchin, Reverend Warnock down in Georgia, and Tim Kaine in Virginia. And this bill is called Freedom to Vote Act.
Okay.
And what they try to do with this is see how they can get that 50th vote that they couldn't get for the For the People Act. So how they could get Joe Manchin on board with a bill that protects voting rights, that he feels comfortable for supporting and voting for. Now, the issue with this is, just like with the other two voting bills, the John Lewis Voting Advancement Act and the For the People Act, Mitch McConnell has already come out and said, we're not with it. We're not supporting it. And he's going to whip his caucus to make sure they don't support it, which means we still probably will not have those 60 votes to break the filibuster with the Freedom to Vote Act. So some of the provisions in it still deals with election integrity, voter verified paper ballots, protection of election records, preventing state elections subversion. And it also has some other provisions in it as well, too, that are key. So another one is voter access. So automatic voter registration, making sure Election Day is a holiday, a national holiday with paid time off. Unifying early voting, so making a standard across the nation of what our early voting standards will be. So is it 15 days, 12 days? That part of the bill has not been rolled out yet, the full text. Same day voter registration. So if you go to the poll, you're unregistered, and you want to vote that day, you just step to the side and go through another process.
Oh, that's
and
excellent.
you're able to vote that day. And it checks in an automatic system to make sure you're not registered anywhere else. Federal minimum standards for voting by mail in drop boxes. So how many drop boxes per capita instead of per county, how they're doing down in Georgia right now. They said, only 3 per county, which works for least dense counties, but in like Fulton and in Cobb County, where there's millions of people, having 3 drop boxes isn't enough.
Right.
So just some of that thing. Now, the one thing, the 2 things that this really doesn't address, that the For the People Act also addressed, was the anti-corruption part of it.
Okay.
So making sure there's public filings for everyone who's donating, getting rid of that dark money that comes into politics. And there's a great movie and documentary called Dark Money about the Montana and how they took on dark money groups there. And then also another provision that isn't really addressed fully in this bill, in the Freedom to Vote Act, is the national standard for voter ID requirements. Okay. So what it does, what the For the People Act was asking for is what can be used as IDs, and it requires states to follow that. Right? So under this bill, the only thing they're saying is expand your list of what you require as an ID, but it's optional. They're saying things you can use, or additionally student ID, anything virtually to identify yourself. as well as bills and leases agreements that you sign can be used as identification to verify you are a voter at a certain address and that you can vote in this election.
Oh, wow, that's excellent. And even though I say it's excellent in that, I just don't understand the real difference between the John Lewis. You did share a couple differences, and some of the differences, the dark money piece, I'm very concerned about why he wanted not put that back in there. You know, and knowing that you're not going to get any other senators from the Republican Party, so that means there must be interest from him.
Exactly.
But the point is, we still at one problem, Kobe, and I'm going to tell you what the problem is. We don't have 60 senators.
Exactly.
So why not? We brought him on. He's a part of the group that. Excuse me. He's a part of the group that that's going to do this legislation. The question I want to ask is, how does it get passed?
Correct. So President Biden announced last week that he is going to be willing to sit down and talk with certain Democratic senators. I could tell you who they are. Joe Manchin, Krista Sinema, about filibuster reform in order to get this done. And, you know, now he's signaling that his administration, now that they got past the infrastructure, now that they're working on the reconciliation bill, that now voting rights is going to be the next big thing that they're going to be focusing in on. So hopefully from those conversations, they're able to come up with some type of deal to change the filibuster so that they can get the 50 votes they needed to pass this. And again, the filibuster is just ending debate on it, ending the discussion on the bill. It's not saying we're going to pass it. So the filibuster, you need 60 votes to pass it. And that has been changed multiple times throughout history. And then you only need 51 votes to pass the bill. And the 51st vote will come from the vice president, most likely.
Yeah, but I tend to believe some of the things that we're afraid. There are some senators out there who go to these, who are part of these swing states, that they will be a part of this. They'll be a part of supporting it, but they're having a good time hiding behind because they're not on record for doing anything. So once it gets to the floor, and like you said, the filibuster is really saying, you know, can we take this to a vote? Not this is the decision.
Right.
Can we take it to a vote and hide behind the filibusters while some of them can still sit comfortable? But if we can get past, can we take it to a vote, to taking it to a vote? I believe with all my heart, soul, and mind, you're going to find that you may not need Kamala Harris to break some of these ties. You might because, you know, they got the Republicans kind of, but they belong to some states because some of the things that Joe Biden is trying to do and others with the voters' right, with the for the people, so many different things. It affects more than people who are from Democratic states.
Right. No, and you know, one of the things about the filibuster and people who are against removing it, they say, so what happens when you lose power, right? So I agree. You know, the tides turn all the time, but the tides turn because they feel as though nothing's getting done.
Right.
So once you remove that filibuster, you have to be able to get the work done, in a pace that actually benefits the American people. So things such as the PRO Act that will be build unions up and build strong, organized labor up throughout this nation would be beneficial to so many Americans.
Right.
You have to pass that. You have to pass a pathway to citizenship. You have to pass D.C. statehood. And not only that, D.C. statehood would create 2 more Democratic senators in the chamber, and most likely only 1 member of the U.S. House. But this is the type of things that you have to do and address in order to keep your majority. You cannot be complacent and sit back and be like, oh, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, while not actually passing legislation that is beneficial to the American people. That's how you keep your majority, not by hiding through a procedural rule that holds up legislation that's needed.
And Kobe, as articulate as you just shared that, I'm sure there are others who are doing the exact same thing, but for somehow, some way, it's falling on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Because when you said this D.C. statehood, that was enough. There's 2 more senators, you will be fine.
Yeah.
But there's a force that just says, you know what, I just like everything to be stalled. Let me go, as we're coming to the end of our show, I want to just talk about a couple follow-up things that we talked about, and I want to make sure that our viewers know that we are staying on top of them. One is the Delaware House Ethics Committee on this whole notion. What's going on with that?
Yes, so they had their meeting And in their meeting, they discussed what happened in those emails, the remarks made by Brady after, and they felt as though they had no cause to pursue it any further and take any actions to it, and that it's up to the residents of his district if they believe that he needs to resign or not. So I know it's still a lot of discussion and talks going on with members of the Asian American community, and also individuals who live in the 4th Representative District about what Brady said and how they feel about it.
Yeah, it's just interesting how there's such a double standard. It becomes it's up to the voters when they don't want to deal with something. Right. But when there's somebody, especially in the African American community, it's up to us who are the leaders of the political party to handle this. But we'll keep our eyes out on that. What about this eviction notice? I know there are several people who are watching, and they're interested in knowing where we are. I know we're still on vacation, but where are we?
Yeah. So again, Congress is on vacation, so they haven't done anything on that level. So pretty much it's been up to state governments on whether or not they're going to take action to try to protect their residents. I think the biggest states so far is California and New York have already started taking steps to ensure that there's not mass evictions happening in their states. We need to see the same thing here. Actually, the Delaware General Assembly has a bill that they have drafted that's in the House Committee, HB 100, which will provide counsel to those and also assistance to those who are facing eviction as well, too.
Okay, so we're going to keep following up on that. And then there's the final thing I want to share is about the follow-up in something that happened here in Southbridge. There was a person who was blogging, and I'm not even going to give you all the information because I don't want you to blog and give him more counts on his blogger. But he rolled through Southbridge, and he was basically talking about inner cities. And he, I guess, called himself defining, couldn't even say the word Hill Street appropriately. But I just want to say to all of you who watch, we should never allow an outsider to define who we are. It bothered me, it troubled me dearly and greatly when I saw the video where he's riding through the Southbridge section of the city, and as he's riding through, he's labeling and he's saying and he's talking about the people who are cooking out and things of that nature and whether or not they're in the projects and things of that nature. And while it may not have been ill-intended, which I kind of think it was, but while it may not have been, we have to make sure that we are always defining who we are. Here in Southbridge, I've come into a community. This church, East Zion Fair Baptist Church, was founded in Southbridge 102 years ago. They decided to move to the east side for about 80 years, and then we came back to Southbridge. And what we do in this community is to reinforce the power, the rich history, the legacy that this community is so richly with. We can never, and we shall never, allow ourselves to be defined by an individual and especially by an outsider. I want to say that to you all because a lot of our viewers are from the Southbridge community as well as across this city and some county parts, but do not allow people to come in and define your community. I saw it. I was upset with it. I got, matter of fact, a couple of the preachers, the pastors here in the city, I think it was Pastor Oliver, he and I communicated, and Powell as well. We were not happy. No, we will not allow ourselves to be defined by other individuals, and we'll do all we can to continue to support this rich, strong culture and heritage that we have here in Southbridge. But I don't want anyone to believe that they're going to define. That's why when we came here as a church, not Pastor Curry, because this church was here way before I even got started, but when we came here as a church, we wanted to continue to add to an already rich history, already a rich culture. And we're building. We've built 2 buildings thus far. We have some more coming. But what we want to make sure is that we never become arrogant, and we never allow people from the outside to be arrogant and to look down on Southbridge, because Southbridge is a place to be reckoned with. Some of the most powerful people in this country, especially in this state, was born right here in Southbridge. And while we have met some hard times because of racism, sexism, misogyny, and other things, while we have met some of that, we have always been able to rebound. So I end today on my side with just simply saying to Southbridge and to all of the communities in Wilmington, even though you may go through a hard moment, never allow anyone to define who you are. Kobe, thank you so much for the show today. Is there anything else you want to say for today?
No, after that, all I can say is we have to be strong as a city. We have to be strong as a state. And, you know, there's a motto that we use during the pandemic, and it's Wilmington Strong, and we have to stay united with that. So that's all I have for today. It's been a great show. And, again, I just thank you for allowing me to be on here with y'all.
Yeah, well, it's a privilege and an honor to have you here, and I'm glad that you're still sticking with us. And to Jay, who is not here today, he'll be back within the next week or so. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your wisdom and your knowledge that you always use to share us. We're just trying to show you all that there's 3 different generations that will be sitting at the table at different times, and we want to make sure that you see it from that perspective and know that we're going to give you trustworthy. We got one more person we're trying to bring in so that we can bring some female in here, because all of these males, it seems a little sexist, but we love you. Thank you so very much for the time we shared together. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
See you later.
Take care, y'all.